A small and quiet town where residents knew each other and where there had been no murder for 25 years. Crothersville, Indiana, in the United States, would witness a crime that shocked all the inhabitants of that small place. A 10-year-old girl was found lifeless, her hands tied, in a lake on a winter day. Today, we will talk about the Katie Collman case. Katie was born on August 13, 1994, was in the 4th grade, and was very happy because the day after the incident, she was going to attend a school-organized pajama party. Katie was described as a happy and always smiling girl. However, everything would change on that distressing day. On January 25, 2005, a Tuesday, Katie returned home from school as usual. Her mother, Angela, was at home preparing dinner while her father, John, was still at work, as he worked in a local factory, a completely normal routine for a family. Katie lived with her mother, Angela, her father, John, and her older sister. Around 3 p.m., Angela asked her daughter Katie to go to the dollar store, a supermarket near the family's home, to buy toilet paper. Katie had done this before without any problem. The cashier even helped her count the correct amount of money. On her way back, Katie stopped at the nearby bank to get a lollipop from the counter and then returned home. Katie was used to following that route, and even though it was a small town of about 1,500 inhabitants, there wouldn't be any problems with her going out alone, or at least that's what everyone thought. She had been there countless times, and it was only a few blocks from her house, a journey that wouldn't take more than 20 minutes. Despite being a short and quick journey, Katie began to take longer to return home. Still, her mother wasn't initially concerned because it was common for the girl to meet friends on the street and be late chatting. However, when Katie's father, John, had already returned from work, and the girl still wasn't home, her parents began to worry. Both started to fear for her safety and searched for their daughter in the neighborhood, calling the girl's friends hoping she might be at a school friend's house. When they couldn't find her and there was no sign of her anywhere, they reported her disappearance to the police. The investigation was swift, and soon police dogs caught Katie's scent and traced it to the train tracks. A neighbor told the police that they believed Katie had stopped there on her way back home to inform him that her dog had been run over by the train. According to this neighbor's account, Katie didn't reach his house to report about the animal. This led to the belief that she had sympathized with that scene of the lifeless animal, intended to inform the owner about it, but before reaching her neighbor's house, something or someone stopped her, and she mysteriously disappeared. For the police, having a missing child in that small town where everyone knew each other was rare, as there had been no reports associated with crimes for about 25 years. They began trying to reconstruct the girl's route that day, and the store cashier confirmed that the girl had been there that day. Several witnesses also confirmed seeing Katie around 4 p.m. walking toward her house. But then her trail was suddenly interrupted. After 24 hours of unsuccessful searches, several hypotheses began to be raised by the local police, including the possibility that Katie had been kidnapped and taken out of town. At this point, the FBI became involved in the investigation. Then, 2 days after Katie's disappearance, the police issued an Amber Alert, an emergency child abduction system. This alert was issued because a witness came forward to the police and said they saw a girl resembling Katie in a white van. According to this witness, the man driving the van was white, very thin, about 5 feet 11 inches tall, with short dark hair. The witness told the police that the girl did not seem to be in danger or seeking help in any way. At this stage of the investigation, an exhaustive search began to find the man from the description. However, the police would face a small obstacle. At that time, many people in that town owned this type of vehicle, and such a police check, interrogating every citizen who owned a white van, seemed and indeed was a time-consuming task. The police were hopeful of finding Katie alive since the Amber Alert was implemented in Indiana. It had been used just over 20 times, and each time the child was found alive. However, unfortunately, that wasn't the case in this instance. On the morning of January 30th, a patrol officer passed by Cypress Lake. Something blue on the surface of the lake near the shore caught his attention. Stopping and approaching, the officer realized it was the body of a child. Unfortunately, the body was that of Katie. The hope of finding the girl alive ended. Now, the case of disappearance turned into a murder investigation. The girl's body showed no visible injuries, so the cause of death was unknown until the autopsy, which confirmed that she died from drowning. Katie was also found with her hands tied. The girl's family was devastated by the news of their daughter's death and the way she was found. However, something unexpected happened. About 3 days after the body of little Katie was found, a local resident, 20-year-old Charles Hickman, called the police station and confessed that he and a friend kidnapped Katie. He said she witnessed an illegal drug transaction on her way home that day, and since she had seen too much, they wanted to scare her so she wouldn't speak or tell anyone about it. He said that he and his 22-year-old friend, Timothy O'Sullivan, took Katie to his house and then to the creek. According to Charles, they tied her hands, and Katie fell into the creek and drowned. It seemed that the case was resolved until this moment. A crime had occurred, and a confession was made. However, the results of Katie's autopsy came out, and it was determined by the medical examiner that Katie had been sexually abused, and the abuser's semen was still inside her. Despite the passage of 5 days, the extremely cold temperature of the lake had frozen the sperm, making it detectable in the examination. When comparing the semen found with Charles's, it was confirmed that he did not abuse the girl. Charles's friend, a potential accomplice, said he knew absolutely nothing about the girl's death. The matter was spiraling out of the police's control, and every inhabitant of that town was a suspect, even Katie's father. The police collected dozens of samples, but no matches were found. Regarding Charles Hickman, the police released him about 3 months after the crime, following testimonies from his friends and the alleged accomplice, Timothy, who stated in his testimony that they were using drugs on the day everything happened. Timothy suggested that Charles might have been so hallucinated that he himself thought he was responsible for the girl's death. His involvement in the murder was ruled out. Even after being released, he stated in court that he was innocent. Nonetheless, many people believed he was covering up for the real killer or knew something that could lead to the culprit. However, this hypothesis was also discarded by the investigators. After 3 months of searching for clues leading to the real killer, the police found a cigarette butt near the crime scene whose DNA matched the DNA of the person who raped the girl. The cigarette belonged to the Roger brand, which wasn't sold in all stores. Only 4 stores sold these cigarettes. Each of the employees of these stores was alerted that if someone came to buy these cigarettes, the vendor should report it to the police. A week later, the police received the long-awaited call. A store clerk reported that a man had recently appeared to buy Roger brand cigarettes, and, most alarmingly, he was in a white pickup truck. The attendant noted the license plate, and the police located the owner, named Anthony Stockelman, aged 40. Arriving at Anthony's house, the detectives noticed several cigarette butts. Anthony was surprised by the police's arrival and denied any involvement in the case. Despite his denial, the police compelled him to collect a DNA sample, which ended up matching the semen DNA found on Katie's body. Anthony, a father of 2 boys, was not from Crothersville, but he was there on the day Katie disappeared to visit his mother. He also drove a white pickup truck that closely resembled the one a witness believed they saw Katie in that day. DNA samples found on the rope used to tie Katie also belonged to Anthony, and samples taken from the carpet at his mother's house confirmed that Katie had been there. Finally, the detectives on the case were able to reconstruct what happened to Katie that afternoon. As the killer Anthony was transporting things from his mother's house, at that moment he saw Katie pass by. His mother's house was on the path the girl took to go to hers. In some moment of delirium and sick desire, he felt attracted to the girl and somehow, he lured her to his mother's house, and there in one of the rooms, he committed sexual abuse. The police reached this conclusion because the wires found on Katie's body confirmed the fact that the girl was at Anthony's mother's house. After that, the man tied her hands and put her in the car. Katie, after the abuse, probably went into a state of shock and was unable to show any reaction, so much so that the witness said in court that the girl did not appear to be in danger. The man took Katie to the lake and threw her tied up on the cliff. There he remained silent and finished his cigarette, watching the girl drown. In exchange for a deal with the prosecutor, Anthony pleaded guilty. In response, the prosecutor did not seek the death penalty, and as a result, Anthony was sentenced to life imprisonment. But his punishment was far from over. Anthony was sent to prison to serve his sentence, but what he had no idea about was that Jared Harris, 22 years old and Katie's cousin, was serving time in the same prison for theft. On September 22, 2006, Jared entered Anthony's cell. He held a blade to his throat and instructed him to comply. About an hour later, Jared left Anthony's cell, leaving a massive tattoo on his forehead reading, "Katiesrevenge." He wanted to ensure that Anthony would never forget Katie and that everyone would know exactly who Anthony was and what he had done. Jared was supposed to be released 6 months later, but due to his action, he received an additional 7 years in prison. Despite this, he said he did not regret his act. As for Anthony, he was transferred to solitary confinement. He eats alone, rests alone, and whenever possible, he is alone. Katie had plans for the morning following what happened. She was excited because she was going to attend her school's pajama party, and her dreams were brutally and unforgivably interrupted. At no point did the killer think about her underage children, the atrocity he was committing against that girl, or even Katie's family. Undoubtedly, he is a cold and cruel man who feels no remorse for his actions. Katie left a void in the hearts of those who loved her, lived with her, and knew her gentle, loving, and kind ways. That was the true identity and essence of Katie, and that is how she will be remembered forever. Leave your opinion on this case in the comments, subscribe to the channel to discover more stories like this, and don't forget to leave a like. See you in the next video.